Yo, what up, and welcome back to Pnoid News. Man, listen, it's that time of the day again. All right, yo, listen, I understand it's like, is it Monday night? Yeah, it's Monday night, bro. Listen, I had a long weekend. Went camping, took the kids out, fucking did some hiking, did a bunch of shit, worked Saturday night. Man, listen, I've had a long weekend, okay? Legit, I've been grinding my motherfucking ass. I even went hiking today. I've been doing my fucking thing, right? I've been handling my business. But I wanted to stand here and bring y'all, right, some shit that I done seen this week that I thought was super interesting, right? Tell you what, we should probably start with the video, right? I'm going to keep it a beam with you. We should start with, this video. Now, this video is two AIs, right, where they program them as a economist and one is like a historical or an historical anthropologist or something like that, right? Super interesting. They're going to break all this stuff down and we're going to have a whole ass conversation about this, right? Because I'll be honest with you, what they did was 3 weeks ago, they came up with my idea that I came out with, years ago. They have a really good way of putting it, right? Because it's super fucking interesting. And I think we're going to adopt this idea. We're going to adopt this little piece since they want to steal my shit. Well, they, come to the same conclusions that I did because I'm fucking smart. Right. And, we're going to steal their way of putting it, which is basically stop fighting fucking human nature. It's goddamn simple bullshit thing, bro. Basic ass meme. Let's get to it.
To create a new economic model for the 21st century using two characters, a heterodox economist and historian, and a systems designer and anthropologist. They designed their economic model in 10 steps. We asked 5 AI models to rate this new economic model based on these 8 criteria. We also asked these models to score America's, China's, and Germany's economic systems for comparison. This newly proposed economic system scored higher on almost all criteria, suggesting that, at least from the AI's perspective, it's better than what we already have. All right, let's get into details. Step 1, problem definition. What are the core systemic failures we must solve that neither capitalism nor socialism has adequately addressed?
Both systems fail at the basic coordination problem, but in opposite ways. Capitalism uses price signals to coordinate economic activity effectively. When iPhone demand rises, prices signal producers to make more iPhones. But markets consistently ignore costs they don't have to pay for, like pollution or worker burnout. Since the 1980s, financial markets have grown much faster than the real economy, meaning money increasingly chases financial returns rather than funding actual production. Socialist economies reduced inequality significantly compared to capitalist ones. But central planners couldn't process the millions of daily decisions about what to produce and where. The key insight, both miss. Historically successful economies always combined multiple organizing systems. Medieval towns had markets, guilds, family businesses, and shared commons all working together. The mistake is thinking you need one master system when humans naturally organize through multiple, overlapping institutions.
That multi-institutional point is important, but I think there's an even deeper design flaw both systems share. When I study how people actually make economic decisions across different cultures, the same individual operates completely differently depending on context. Someone might negotiate ruthlessly in a marketplace but share everything freely within their extended family. Both capitalism and socialism try to force one behavioral model across all social situations, which creates constant friction. Traditional economies worked because they were context-sensitive. People naturally shifted between competitive, cooperative, and reciprocal modes, based on relationships and circumstances. The real failure isn't just institutional, it's assuming you can predict and control human economic behavior through uniform incentives. We need to understand how humans naturally self-organize across different scales and design economic systems that work with those patterns rather than against them.
Building on
Yo, listen, this is some basic ass shit, right? working with humans rather than against it. Like, so the idea of like liberalism is you want to stand here and incentivize for everybody to be like as productive as possible. The issue comes down to like the state, right? When it comes down to like the entire problem is the fucking state. The state needs to grow and always maintain more taxes because it has like debts to pay. So in order for you to continue to pay those debts and be able to continue to like spend more money in the future, you have to print more dollars, which means your debt's always going to get bigger no matter what, which means your economy always had to grow so you can like maintain your tax receipts. So everybody has to work more, right? Or, continue working as a whole and earn more money. This idea is a failed fucking concept. Like what's failing right now isn't society. It's the state model. It's the entire model of having a fucking state. That's what's failing at the moment. It's an Enlightenment ideology anyway, and it probably shouldn't fucking exist. But this is what it is at the moment. Let's keep going.
On that behavioral insight, both systems also completely fail at time horizons. Markets optimize for quarterly profits, while ecological and social systems operate on decade or century timescales.
Yeah, see, we speak about this often when you talk about like the aquifers being dried up in the Midwest. In particular, we talk about the Okalichi aquifer, right? How you have like these farmers who have to like every season grow more crops because their crops are like, less profitable. And so therefore, they continue to like drain off more and more water, and the aquifer ends up like collapsing, and then you can't like refill the aquifer. It's because like at that moment, the farmer needs the fucking money, and they're not thinking about the long-term time scales of like what the hell happens and how's my grandson going to be able to farm this fucking property. This is a fucking issue, right? At the end of the day, this is something that we don't have conversations about because none of our systems operate on a generational time scale.
Socialist planning was better at long-term thinking, but still tied to political cycles. Neither system has figured out how to make decisions that account for costs and benefits that show up 30 to 50 years later. We're literally eating our future, depleting soils, aquifers, and stable climate, because both systems treat environmental resources as either free inputs or acceptable externalities. And here's another critical failure. Neither has solved democratic economic participation. Capitalism concentrates decision-making power with capital owners. Socialism with party officials. Most people spend half their waking hours in economic institutions, where they have zero voice in major decisions affecting their lives.
Those time horizon mismatches point to something even more fundamental. Both systems assume infinite growth on a finite planet, which is mathematically impossible. But there's another layer. They both scale terribly. Markets work reasonably well for local exchanges, but create massive coordination failures at global scale, like supply chains that optimize for cost while ignoring human trafficking or carbon emissions.
And again, we get back to like the fruit cup problem. Like the fruit cup travels 20,000 miles across like, the ocean multiple fucking times in order to like get to your plate, right? We don't have conversations about the amount of energy involved in like doing these type of things because all we really give a shit about is scale. And, we don't really want to have those conversations. For instance, like your Hyundai or your Kia, right, was probably put together or like at least partially built with slave labor in the United States because they traffic fucking 10 and 11-year-old children to put together body panels and to stamp out fucking parts down in like fucking Alabama and Georgia. These are things that you don't have a conversation about. We don't have talks about these type of things because like we don't, like really have the ability to have like, that conversation because all we care about is fucking cost. And when all you care about is cost, it's a bit of an issue. You know what I mean? Like we're no longer being fucking human, right? We got to keep going on.
Socialist planning worked better in smaller, more homogeneous societies, but became
Hang on, what did y'all just say a second ago? Hang on, man. Socialist planning worked better in smaller, more homogenous societies. Weird how that operates. It's fucking strange how that operates.
Planning worked better in smaller, more homogeneous societies, but became increasingly dysfunctional as scale and complexity increased. Neither has solved how to maintain human agency and meaningful relationships while coordinating across millions of people. And
Listen, again, man, things we talk about all the goddamn time, right? It's weird. Like, listen, it's maybe like, yo, we are way ahead of the fucking game. You know what I'm saying? It's maybe we are far, far, far ahead of like where everybody the fuck else is at. Let's keep going.
both treat technological change as either a market opportunity or a planning challenge, missing how technology fundamentally reshapes social relationships and power structures.
I was listening to somebody talk about how like they were speaking to the Amish. Some third party it out at that point, but they said that like the Amish don't like reject technology just off pocket, right, off rip. What they do is they reject technology that destroys their cohesiveness. I apologize. Right, I had to yawn. Right, they reject technology that destroys the cohesiveness of the community. He said, "Listen, having like a nail gun doesn't destroy like the cohesiveness of each other, right? Because like you're still going to be there for like your neighbor to help them fix something or build a barn or like repair things, whatever the case is. But having a car will allow you to be able to drive much further, like to get to wherever you're going. So therefore, like you might not be there, right across the street from your fucking neighbor." These are the type of conversation that, we have to have as like human beings, right? When it comes to technology, but we don't want to really fucking do that.
We're trying to run 21st century technological complexity through institutional frameworks designed for much simpler economies.
All right. Step 1, problem definition, is complete. The models identified 10 core systemic failures that neither capitalism nor socialism has adequately addressed.
Does capitalism really have any planning? Yes, it does, right? How do I put this? Ultimately, when you're talking about capitalism inside of a state model, right? Because capitalism started off without a state model. It was a colony model. Like it actually got started in 1450 on Madeira, right outside of Portugal. And, it was like the reason why they had capitalism there is because like, they got there and there was no king, nobody owned it, and it was uninhabited. So therefore they could do whatever they wanted. And they used it for timber first and then sugar planting and then, sugar cane, right? And then, they ran through all the viable timber when they went and got slaves and shit. And they borrowed money from like the Venetians and the Dutch, right? Because they didn't have to like deal with the king. But once then you put capitalism into a state model, what ends up happening is like then you have courts and judges and all the things and laws and regulations and rules because you have to, right? So therefore then you do end up having planning because you go, oh, listen, these are the rules for this capitalist model right here, right? So yes, capitalism does have planning and shit, right, when it comes down to it. And especially, depending on like where you are and how it operates, that type of geographical shit, just how it works.
Let's move on to the second step, first principles exploration. What is an economy fundamentally supposed to accomplish for human flourishing?
An economy should enable every person to develop their capabilities while contributing to collective well-being. That means ensuring basic material security first: food, shelter, healthcare, education, but not stopping there. Humans need meaningful work that uses their talents, social connection, and some degree of autonomy over their lives. The economy should also maintain the ecological foundations that make all human activity possible, and create conditions for future generations to flourish too. Everything else, markets, planning, institutions, are just tools. The fundamental purpose is expanding human potential within planetary boundaries. Both capitalism and socialism got distracted by ideological arguments about means, instead of staying focused on these ends. A successful economy creates the material and social conditions for people to live dignified, purposeful lives, while preserving the natural systems we depend on.
That capability framework is solid, but I'd add that an economy must also preserve cultural diversity and social cohesion. Humans aren't just individual capability maximizers. We're deeply social beings who derive meaning from belonging to communities with shared values and practices. The economy should enable different groups to organize economic life according to their values.
Listen, again, way ahead of the fucking game, right? Like, everybody's out here talking about all this philosophical, like, Nietzschean fucking bullshit, right? And trying to go through Christianity and all this fucking garbage, right? Legit trying to tell you how, as an individual, you should live. I've always said it's fucking nonsense, right? Always said it's fucking nonsense. Because, like, legitimately, first things first, like, yo, human beings are ultimately, right, part of a community, a family, an ancestry, a fucking group, right? When it comes down to it, the whole idea of a motherfucker just being an individual is a liberal fucking value, right? It's a modern value. This is modernity at its foremost. Nietzsche was a fucking modernist, not a postmodernist, a modernist, right? Motherfuckers don't understand what they don't understand, right? It's crazy how, like, people miss the forest for the fucking trees. Let's keep going.
Whether that's more individualistic or more collective approaches. It also needs to be adaptive, capable of learning and evolving as conditions change, rather than optimizing for one set of circumstances. Most critically, it should work with human social instincts rather than against them.
Fucking based. Yo, legit. Right? Yo, legit. It should work with human social instincts rather than against them. Tom Peace for the win here, bro. Tom Peace for the win here.
We naturally reciprocate. We care about fairness. We form in-groups. An economy that treats these as bugs to overcome rather than features to work with will always create stress and instability.
Liberalism for the loss here, fellas.
The goal is creating conditions where human nature and economic necessity align rather than conflict.
All right, step 2 completed. Here's the learning. An economy should fundamentally provide basic material security, meaningful work, and social connection while preserving ecological foundations. We should work with human nature rather than against it, focusing on outcomes that enable human flourishing within planetary boundaries, rather than getting caught up in ideological debates about economic systems.
How many times have I told y'all motherfuckers? How many times? Socialism, capitalism, communism, fucking all just fucking utilitarian arguments for different fucking economic models. Ain't got shit to do with nothing the fuck else. Bro, all these ideological fucking bullshit is just motherfuckers who think government is the goddamn fucking, think government's God. They think government's a fucking religion. Listen, science-based fucking retardation. Let's keep it 100.
Step 3. Human nature assumptions. What model of human motivation and behavior should we design our system around?
Humans are conditionally cooperative. We'll collaborate when we trust others will too. But we'll compete or defect when we think we're being exploited. This isn't fixed behavior. It's adaptive response to institutional design. People respond to different motivations simultaneously. Material self-interest, social status, group loyalty.
Y'all listen, right? Let me keep this a beam with you, all right? I go to work sometimes, all right? And work will tell me to do the most retarded shit. Like, just retarded. So I went down to, I'll give you for instance, I went down to Whirlpool the other day, right? I took a load down to Whirlpool, okay? And then my dispatcher, right, texted me and said, you need to leave and get an empty and then go back in, right, to get the next load at the same place. Now, I was talking to somebody. They ain't never been in a truck before, weren't in the trucking industry, and had no idea how trucking worked. But they said, wouldn't they end up emptying out that trailer that you brought in, and that would become an empty? And I said, yes, it would. You know what I mean? This is the definition of a drop and hook, right? But because my dispatch is fucking retarded, right? You know what I mean? I had to go and get another empty. Now, I called and asked, I said, are you sure? And they said, yes. I said, all right, cool, whatever. I'll go waste gas. I don't give a fuck, right? See, these are things that have happened multiple times at jobs where, like, I go, hey, listen, this is not going to work. You know what I mean? And they go, oh, Well, like, now most motherfuckers would fight about this, right? Because they know they were fucking right. Whereas me, I just go, I don't care. Like, listen, I want you on, like, I'm going to record you saying these things that you're saying right now, right? So later on, when this shit breaks, y'all guys don't fucking blame me and go, well, why did you do that? I'm like, yo, because you told me to fucking do that shit. I told you it was retarded, right? But, like, you didn't want to fucking listen, right? You know what I mean? And I can pull out the video and go, yeah, listen, look, here, right here's you saying it, okay? I wanted to make sure that I got, like, a video of you saying, remember I videotaped you saying this shit, right? And this is why, because I didn't want you blaming me for being fucking retarded, right? But, like, this is what this is, right? It's when the system's completely fucking broken, right? You just, you know what I mean? Like, fucking stop giving a fuck, right? Or you just, you know what I mean, do the least amount possible is what quiet quitting's all about and shit, right? Let's keep going.
Moral principles and personal autonomy. The key insight from behavioral economics is that context shapes which motivation dominates. In anonymous market transactions, self-interest prevails. In small groups with repeated interactions, reciprocity and reputation matter more. The economic system needs to create contexts that activate.
This is really important to understand, right? When you, as a human being, okay, don't stand here and, like, have the ability, right, to fucking just roll the fuck out, you know what I mean, and go elsewhere. You behave yourself much more because, like, your reputation matters, right? And then, like, you having to act in a proper way once you do something fucked up so you can regain your reputation creates better humans. This is how this works. Like, this is the fucking problem of being able to go, well, listen, I fucked up my life here, I'm gonna go elsewhere and go fucking try again. Right now, right? You're supposed to be able to, like, fix it, or in general not fuck up in the first place, right? There's supposed to be, like, fucking stakes for you fucking up. And right now, because of the fact that we can just go wherever we want, go pick up and move, motherfuckers go, well, listen, if I fuck up here, I'll just, you know, go to California or I'll go to Texas and nobody will know me. That should be a thing. Sorry, man. Long fucking weekend.
Our cooperative instincts while having safeguards against bad actors. We can't design for saints or assume everyone's selfish. We need systems that work with the full spectrum of human behavior, including people's tendency to follow social norms and their need for both individual agency and community belonging.
That conditional cooperation model
Communitarianism for the win, fellas.
captures something crucial, but we also need to account for how humans naturally organize into hierarchies and handle resource distribution. Across every culture I've studied, people have intuitive concepts of fairness, but these vary dramatically based on relationships and context. Within families, people share based on need. Among peers, they prefer equality. In hierarchies, they accept unequal outcomes if the process feels legitimate. People also have strong reciprocity.
Yeah, this is real shit right here, right? Look. We've all had, like, bosses or company owners or CEOs, you know what I mean, we worked under, whatever the case is, right? And we understand that, like, these people here, they went and they started a business and they grinded it out and they did all this type of stuff. And anybody who's ever owned a business knows that shit is fucking hard, bro. It's retarded. And, like, the amount of paperwork and nonsense and garbage and regulations and rules and shit and fucking da-da-da-da-da-da risk and everything involved, it's too fucking much, bro. It's too goddamn much for me to fucking deal with, right? I don't want to fucking deal with that bullshit. I'd much rather just be a dude who gets a fucking paycheck, right? That's where the fuck I get to. Like, listen, I knew a dude one time, I was working at Samsung. I was fucking a manager, right? And he was a forklift operator, right? And he wasn't under me. He was under, like, another company. He was under Jacobson. And these guys, right? This guy was the smartest dude in the fucking warehouse out of everybody, right? And, like, I asked him, I was like, bro, listen, why aren't you the boss? And he said, shit, man, that shit's above my motherfucking pay grade, son. And he just went on about his business. He got it. You know what I'm saying? He understood the mental. He was like, yeah, listen, I don't want to deal with their bullshit. You think I want to be in a fucking office? You are out of your goddamn mind. I don't want to deal with these fucking retards every fucking day and have to deal with the stress of dealing with other people. Just let me drive my lift and give me my fucking paycheck. And that's it. Right?
Reciprocity instincts. They'll punish freeloaders even at personal cost, and they'll reward those who contribute to group welfare. The system needs to harness these instincts rather than fight them. Most importantly, humans are status-seeking creatures, but status can be based on wealth, skill, service to others, or cultural achievement. The economic system should create multiple pathways to status and recognition, not just material accumulation. We're also meaning-making beings who need to feel our work and lives matter beyond just survival.
Step 4. Resource allocation mechanisms. What method should determine who gets access to what resources and when?
We need a hybrid allocation system that matches different mechanisms to different types of resources and contexts. For basic necessities, food, healthcare, education, housing, universal access based on need, funded through collective contributions. For personal goods and services where preference matters, entertainment, clothing, travel, market mechanisms work well because they aggregate individual preferences efficiently. For common pool resources like water, forests, or bandwidth, democratic governance by affected communities with science-based limits. For investment in future production, participatory planning, where communities decide priorities, but with market feedback on feasibility and demand. The key is recognizing that one-size-fits-all allocation creates massive inefficiencies and injustices. Markets fail for public goods and natural monopolies. Democratic planning fails for complex preference aggregation. We need institutional diversity that deploys each mechanism where it works best.
That hybrid approach makes sense, but we
All right, so here's what this is, right? Let's use it like the basic premise of water, right? So when it comes to things like water, what you have to do is you have to set a limit on how much water can be used. Now, the limit cannot be the amount that you will expect of rain because, like, listen, for 10,000 years, we've been trying to, like, figure out how much rain we're going to get, right? And the best we can do is a variance, right? So we really don't know. So you have to set it like 10, 15, 20% below the lowest amount you can get. That way, long term, you continually have more water, right, as it is, right, just as a need type of deal, right? And the system will figure itself out after that. And these are the type of things where it's like, yeah, listen, so the democratic thing is like, hey, listen, these are the rules that you set, by democratic people, right? You elect motherfuckers that know what the fuck they're talking about and also, have stake and also, are generationally, on that level where it's like, hey, I don't really have to like fucking worry about this. You know what I mean? Like generationally, it's like, hey, listen, I want my fucking grandkids to like give a shit about this. This is what we should be thinking. Like, I'll be honest with you, right? We haven't really had these questions asked of people when we elect them or when we nominate them or when somebody else nominates them. When somebody gets put in for the EPA, nobody asks, hey, listen, do you want your grandkids to like have the ability, your great grandkids, your great 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 grandkids to be able to have access to this? Like, do you think they'll still be here? Because asking these type of questions end up creating like a blood and soil mentality about a lot of shit. Right. But you do need to have a blood and soil attitude about shit because we live on the fucking soil, son. Right. And we rely on motherfucking farmers. We, live in a place. We are a people. Right. So like you have to have that fucking attitude. In the end of the day, you have to have those thoughts about what's going to happen to this and my people long term when it comes down to it. So like, this idea that we could move away from this with like liberalism and all the garbage is fucking dumb. Right, let's keep going now.
We need to think more carefully about the boundaries and transitions between these systems. People behave very differently when they know something is market territory versus commons territory versus basic rights territory. The allocation mechanism itself shapes social relationships and power dynamics. When housing is treated as a commodity, people see each other as competitors. When it's a right, they see each other as fellow citizens. We also can't ignore that every allocation system creates its own constituencies who will fight to maintain or expand it.
Well, let me say this, right? you have ultimately a problem, right, in that situation. So when housing is a right, right, for instance, like you go to like Section 8 housing, right, it's always a headache living inside of these fucking places or being inside of these places or dealing with people inside of these places because like there's this weird thing that happens. Now, I personally think that's because there's no males there and because nobody actually owns anything, right? This is kind of the fucking problem. Like if everybody owns some shit there, right? And if they chose to live there by choice, right? You know what I mean? Like say, like you had to agree to a certain mentality and be of a certain ethnicity and of a certain people in order to live in a fucking place, right? And that was some shit that you got a choice to do. It would be different, right? But it's not, right? What it is you're there and you've been placed there and you don't own anything. You don't have any stake. And at any given time, you can lose things and you can always call on higher authorities to help you fucking remove people. What you have to do is you have to give people like a allodial title, right? Where it's like, yeah, listen, this is yours and it's always going to be yours and it's going to be your kids and your grandkids and all this shit. That's why I said it needs to be like the kid's house. Like, listen, we're gonna get into the manifesto right here in a minute because I got a whole ass my fucking communitarian manifesto we're gonna go over to show you how like this is basically the same shit as what the fuck I've been saying. Right. Let's keep going though.
The challenge is designing governance structures that can actually manage these transitions and prevent any single allocation logic from colonizing the others. For example, how do we keep market mechanisms for personal goods from creeping into basic necessities? And how do communities make democratic decisions about common resources without getting captured by vocal minorities or paralyzed by endless process? The allocation mechanism has to include built-in protections for its own boundaries.
Two critical gaps we haven't addressed: global allocation and crisis response. Between regions and nations, we need frameworks that account for historical resource extraction and current ecological capacity. Rich countries can't keep consuming 10 times per capita while claiming market efficiency. Some form of global resource quotas with tradable rights, but with floors and ceilings to prevent extreme inequality.
Now, here's what this is, right? This is some basic shit. And I've said this like forever. What you need to do is if you have to buy something, right, from somewhere the fuck else, what you need to do is you need to pay the same price that you would pay to pull it out of the ground where the fuck you live at, right? This is some basic ass shit, which would equalize everything the fuck out. Because then once you account for shipping, you'll stop pulling things out of the ground in other fucking countries or processing things in another fucking country, right? Because, like you're going to end up dealing with the same bullshit everywhere you fucking go. This is kind of the problem, is where like you have governments like fucking China or like India or like the Congo or whatever the case is that'll just basically let you do whatever the fuck you want and enslave their fucking citizens when it comes down to it, right? And that shouldn't happen, right? You should be doing the processing where you live. That way, like, it at least benefits the people where you live by having fucking jobs, right? And employment, right? And instead, you're trying to do this shit elsewhere because, like, you can pay people slave fucking wages, basically, to fucking process your fucking materials, right? And then fucking end up, like, doing the manufacturing there. And the companies end up getting profiting and, like, bringing the money back on shore to pay their fucking shareholders. This needs to fucking stop, just as a whole, right? So, like, you want, like, this type of stuff, because I agree, right? Like, the resource allocation problem is a fucking issue, and especially on, like, an international fucking level when it comes down to it, right? So, because, like, you got all these people who, like, we got countries like ours that are using 10 times per capita amount of fucking materials, right? Versus, like a place like fucking China or whatever the case is. And they're not, like, standing here, like, having any equalization of anything, right? They're not paying for it. That's the thing. It's like, how much does your shit actually really cost in the end of the day? Like, if you had to produce it here with your own people, what would the cost of your shit be? Would you still be buying it? If the answer is no, then you shouldn't fucking have it. It's probably something that shouldn't fucking exist in the first fucking place. These are probably excess luxury goods that you probably shouldn't have. Let's keep it a bean, right? Let's keep going though.
For crisis allocation, pandemics, natural disasters, supply shocks, we need emergency protocols that temporarily override normal mechanisms. Essential goods get rationed fairly, luxury consumption gets curtailed, and communities mobilize mutual aid networks. The system has to be able to shift gears rapidly without completely abandoning its principles. Both global equity And crisis resilience requires some degree of buffer stockpiles and redundant capacity, which pure efficiency optimization doesn't provide.
Those global quotas require legitimate international institutions that don't exist yet. How do we get from here to there without recreating colonial dynamics? The crisis protocols also need to account for how different communities respond to emergencies. Some cultures prioritize individual preparedness, others collective response. The system has to accommodate both.
Let me keep this a beam with you, right? I don't think that, like, this needs to be a discussion, right? Because, like, this is just ripe for abuse, and they know it's ripe for abuse because, like, they spend so much time on it being abused. Look, anything that like, yeah, listen, this is going to end up being abused because emergency powers are always fucking abused. That's how tyrants are born, right? That's just how this works. It's how people get taken advantage of. Because, oh, it's emergency, fucking boom, and then fucking, like, all of a sudden it's some fucking crazy ass shit, right? People who create emergencies, like, this is just prototypical human fucking behavior. So how about we don't have these emergency things in fucking place and just let motherfuckers die, right? Like, people need to die sometimes. Like, motherfuckers who can't produce shit for themselves and can't, like, fucking take care of themselves, maybe you shouldn't live in that fucking place. Maybe you should move, right? Just how it works. Like, you live in a fucking desert. Go someplace where there's fucking water.
Both approaches while preventing hoarding or free riding. Most importantly, crisis allocation can't become the excuse to permanently erode democratic control. Emergencies create opportunities for authoritarian capture. We need clear triggers for when emergency protocols activate, automatic sunset clauses, and community oversight to prevent mission creep. The mutual aid network.
Yeah, again, we get back to, bro, like, this is just, see, as I'm saying, they know 100% you cannot have this emergency power. Like, it just doesn't work.
You mentioned are crucial because they maintain social solidarity during stress, but they need to be embedded in normal times, not just activated during crises. People have to practice cooperation before they need it desperately.
All right, here's an executive summary. We need a hybrid allocation system that matches different mechanisms to different types of resources, universal access for basic necessities, market mechanisms for personal preferences, democratic governance for common resources, and participatory planning for investments. Step 5. Power structure design. How do we structure economic power to prevent harmful concentration while enabling effective coordination?
Power concentration is inevitable if we don't actively design against it. We need multiple, overlapping systems of accountability rather than single points of control. Economic enterprises should have stakeholder governance. Workers, communities, customers, and capital providers all get representation proportional to their stake and risk. No single group controls everything. For larger coordination, we use federated structures where local units retain autonomy, but delegate specific functions upward.
Yeah, this is where, like, my communitarian ideology comes in. You just say no, right? This is some basic shit. You just tell them no. When Walmart wants to come into your fucking town, you just tell them no. They're not allowed to buy land. Like, fuck off, right? Family Dollar, Dollar General, fucking, the Dollar Tree wants to come in, fuck off. No. Right? This is some basic ass shit. Like, this is some simple things. You just tell them no. Right? Your community should have the right to be able to say, no, you're not allowed to come here. No, we don't want your business. No, we don't need you here. No, we don't want to have, just no. Right? This is where this comes from. This is how you stop, you know what I mean? Like, fucking giant ass people from taking shit the fuck over. You just tell them no. Simple. Basic.
Think Swiss cantons, or how the internet works. Distributed authority with standardized protocols. We also need counter-majoritarian protections and rotation of leadership roles to prevent capture. Most critically, we separate different types of power. Those who control investment shouldn't control information flow. Those who manage operations shouldn't set regulatory standards. The goal isn't eliminating hierarchy, which is impossible, but creating multiple competing hierarchies with different power sources and accountability mechanisms.
That separation of powers concept is essential, but we also need to understand how informal power networks operate alongside formal structures. In every organization I've studied, there are shadow hierarchies based on relationships, information access, and cultural capital that often override official decision-making. The system has to account for these informal networks, rather than pretend they don't exist. We also need mechanisms for legitimate leadership emergence. Some people are better at coordination, have more expertise, or are trusted by their communities. The challenge is creating pathways for competent leadership while preventing permanent power accumulation. Technology adds another layer. Algorithms and data control create new forms of power that traditional democratic institutions can't regulate effectively. We need governance structures that can adapt to new technologies without getting captured by tech elites, plus ways to ensure technological development serves community priorities rather than just maximizing control.
The enforcement problem is
So I was thinking about this weekend. So Sunday night, I took my kids camping. Right, we went out in the woods, went across the water. Listen. I got a confession to make to all y'all motherfuckers out here in YouTube land. Right. I bought a pair of Crocs, and I bought some Crocs for the kids. Listen, I got to cross water on a regular basis when I go fishing. And you know I fish a lot, right? Like, I fish a lot. Like, a lot, right? And, you know, like, a lot of times I got to cross creeks or rivers or whatever it is, and I had to walk across part of the river. And so I bought some Crocs, you know. But I was sitting outside, and about 2:30 this morning, yesterday morning at this point, my phone died, right? And I sat there until my kids woke up about 6 a.m., right, when the sun came up. And I was without my phone and without any television, without any computer, without anything at all but, like, a fire for, like, fucking 4 hours. Just nothing. No car, no technology at all. Sitting in a chair, covered in a blanket because it was like 45 degrees outside, hanging out. I was fishing for a little bit, and then, like, I caught something I didn't know what it was, and I was scared, right? I'll be honest with you. I didn't know what the fuck it was. I got it on stream. I got it on shore, and, like, I got it in, and it was snake-like. I could tell you that. I don't know whether it was an eel or a snake. It was one of the two, but it was black with white on the bottom. Anybody knows what black or yellow on the bottom, one of the two? I don't know. I couldn't see it because I didn't have a light, right? I was like, yeah, you know what, bro? Before I bring, like, an otter in or some shit, or, like, I catch something I really won't want if I'm fuck around and, like, die. Like, listen, I'm gonna chill, right? I'm gonna chill the fuck out. And I realized that, like, you know, all this technology and the noise and the garbage, right, is probably not good for, like, human health at the end of the day. Like, being at peace and being able to be by yourself and on your own is a beautiful thing. And I know that I'm saying that while I'm creating content for YouTube. It's absolute hypocrisy. But, like, you know, this is how it works. You know what I mean? Like, I still got to say the things that is, right? Like, we have to have, like, these type of conversations about shit, right? We have to have these conversations about, like, the basics of fucking life. I forget what the fuck it was that, like, was mentioned maybe. Oh, yeah. Wait, ensure technological development serves community priorities. Yeah, 100%. That's where we are, right? We have to have a conversation about what's healthy for us as a species and not just what's good for the economy.
The priorities, rather than just maximizing control.
the enforcement problem is real. Powerful actors will always try to corrupt or capture oversight mechanisms. We need redundant enforcement through peer monitoring, whistleblower protections, and economic incentives that make rule-breaking costly. When someone violates power-sharing agreements, they lose access to the cooperative benefits that make the system valuable. For expertise concentration, we distinguish between temporary authority based on knowledge versus permanent control. A surgeon leads during surgery, but doesn't control hospital budgets. Technical experts advise, but communities decide. The key is ensuring expertise translates to influence, not ownership.
That expertise distinction is crucial, but we also need to prevent knowledge hoarding as a power strategy. Information and training have to be actively shared, not gatekept. For enforcement across different scales, we need nested systems, community pressure for local violations, economic sanctions for regional ones, and coordinated responses for global power grabs. The tricky part is preventing enforcement mechanisms from becoming new centers of power themselves.
Now, what you need is to stop the police, right, from like enforcing dumb laws. Let me explain this. The reason why you end up with like school shooters, not like the tranny who went in and clipped the kids, but like the actual ones, is because what ends up happening is you have like these kids who, you know what I mean, need to fight to solve their fucking problems, in particular boys, right? Violence is how like young men solve their issues and solve the dominance, the hierarchy is like the question, right? And when you prevent this, right, every time like a kid starts getting in a shoving match, you call the police. What you just did was you escalated every argument, not just every like, you know what I mean, fight, but every argument to a gunfight because you brought a man with a gun and a badge into it, right? So you are preventing, right, the smaller violence, right, by like having bigger violence. And what you're doing right now is you are holding everybody down by like not letting guys like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Zucker get punched in the fucking face, right? Because they need punched in the fucking face, right? Like somebody needs to just gaffle them in the fucking street. Like if we were allowed to like duel these people, if we were allowed, right, to just stand here and like grab a hold of them and whoop they fucking ass for the things that they fucking do, if they had to suffer real consequences, violent consequences as it were, right, these wouldn't be issues any fucking more. Let's keep going.
International coordination is especially challenging because there's no higher authority to appeal to. We need economic incentives that make cooperation more profitable than domination, plus cultural norms that stigmatize power accumulation beyond legitimate need.
Let me summarize. Power naturally concentrates unless we actively prevent it. The solution requires multiple accountability systems with stakeholder governance, where different groups share control rather than one group dominating. We need federated structures that separate different types of power and recognize both official hierarchies and informal influence networks. Step 6. Innovation and Growth Framework. How do we drive beneficial progress while staying within planetary and social boundaries?
We need to decouple innovation from material throughput and redefine what we mean by growth. Real progress means improving quality of life with less resource consumption, better medicine, more efficient energy systems, stronger social connections. Innovation should target genuine human needs rather than manufactured desires. We redirect competitive energy towards solving collective challenges through prizes, open source collaboration, and mission-oriented research programs. Think Manhattan Project or Apollo Program, but for climate solutions, healthcare, and social technologies. The economic system rewards innovators based on social impact, not just market capture. We also need innovation in institutions and social practices, not just technology. Most breakthrough innovations historically came from public research anyway. The internet, GPS, touchscreens. Private markets are good at incremental improvements and scaling, but terrible at fundamental research with uncertain payoffs. The growth has to be in capabilities, knowledge, and well-being, not just material accumulation.
That mission-oriented approach works, but innovation also needs space for serendipitous discovery and local experimentation. Communities should be free to try different economic arrangements and learn from each other's successes and failures. The system has to balance coordinated big pushes with distributed small-scale innovation. We also can't ignore that innovation creates winners and losers. New technologies often displace
Like, yo, look, all right, here's the thing. So like I run around with a guy named Prefix in one of my servers that I hang out with, right? And Prefix is a weird ass nigga. It's just he's the weirdest dude who's ever lived. He lives on like a farm in Maine, right by the coast. And he orders like $5 in stuff from like his local Walmart on a regular basis and has it fucking delivered, right? Now, this is a goddamn tragedy. Like, you shouldn't have like deliveries from Walmart for $5 fucking. Like, number one, that shouldn't be an option. Right? Number two, you know what I mean? You should feel a way about having some shit like that fucking delivered. But because, like, you know, human beings are fucking dumb, they keep doing shit that's terrible for everybody involved. I don't know why. Fuck, I'm so tired. Well, I do. Fucking exhausted. If I had a long weekend. But, like, this is like where shit's at, right? You can't keep standing here, you know what I mean, like having shit that, you know what I mean, is like economically unviable because it's convenient, because you want market capture, right? It's fucking dumb. And we got to have conversations about stuff like that stopping. And not only that, you also should probably have, you know what I mean, like non-durable goods that get fixed. That way you can have local economies. By the way, your local fucking community should be able to boycott shit, right, on a regular basis. Like, if they don't want, like, if they go, hey, listen, Amazon, if you come into our community, we're going to tariff it, right? We're going to toll your fucking Amazon vans every time they come near here, right? You know what I mean? And, like, Amazon should be forced to pay that fucking toll, right, for putting people out of fucking business. Right? These are the things that we should have conversations about, right? Because, like, I don't give a fuck if it gives you more material shit, right? It's not actually, it like literally destroys like your fucking long-term viability of your community by offering boomers and like millennial women more cheap things.
Existing livelihoods and communities. The framework needs built-in transition support and retraining, not just celebration of disruptive change. Innovation incentives should prioritize solutions that work for everyone, not just early adopters with resources. Open source models and commons-based peer production show how creativity flourishes when people can build on each other's work, rather than hoarding knowledge for competitive advantage. The key is creating innovation ecosystems where knowledge flows freely, communities can adapt solutions to local conditions, and the benefits get widely shared rather than captured by first movers.
Step 7. Crisis and adaptation mechanisms. How should the system respond to shocks and evolve over time?
And let me say this too, right? You know what I'm saying? This is really important when it comes down to it. Anything created in a university, right? Whether or not it's by a grant or not, I don't give a fuck, right? Anything created in a university should be open source. I don't fucking care. Like, there should be no patents on anything that was created by public universities or private universities, for that matter, right? These patents should be open fucking source, right? And like, there should be no company in the world allowed to tell you, hey, listen, you can't use this, you know what I mean, and sell this object or make this object on your own. All right, let me keep this on. Let's keep going.
Without collapsing.
Resilience requires redundancy and modularity, not efficiency optimization. The system needs multiple pathways to accomplish essential functions. Diverse food systems, distributed energy grids, various manufacturing capabilities. When one pathway fails, others can compensate. We build in automatic circuit breakers that prevent local failures from spreading throughout the whole system. Think financial firewalls, but for all critical systems. The economic structure should have fast and slow adaptation mechanisms, rapid response teams for immediate crises, plus longer-term processes for institutional change. Communities need local self-sufficiency for basics, while maintaining global coordination for complex challenges. Most importantly, we design for graceful degradation rather than cliff-edge collapse. When stressed, the system should shed non-essential functions while protecting core needs and values. This means accepting higher costs during normal times to maintain spare capacity and diverse options.
That redundancy principle applies to social systems too. Communities need diverse leadership, multiple communication networks, and various mutual aid traditions they can activate during stress. But adaptation also requires ways for institutions to learn lessons from each crisis without overreacting to the last problem. Humans have terrible cognitive biases around risk. We either ignore slowly building threats or panic about rare events. The system needs organized ways to reflect that help communities learn from both successes and failures without abandoning what works. Crisis response also can't become the excuse for permanent emergency powers. We need automatic return mechanisms and community oversight to prevent temporary measures from becoming permanent control. Most critically, different communities will adapt in different ways based on their cultures and resources. The framework has to accommodate this diversity rather than imposing uniform solutions. Some will emphasize individual preparedness, others collective response, still others might develop entirely novel approaches. The meta-system needs to enable knowledge sharing between different adaptation strategies.
Step 10. Final integration. What are the essential rules, institutions, and principles that define this new economic model?
The core principle is contextual coordination, different economic mechanisms for different domains, with clear boundaries and democratic governance of the interfaces. Essential institutions include universal basic services for necessities, stakeholder-governed enterprises for production, community management of common resources, and federated planning for large-scale coordination. The key rules are no concentration of multiple power types in single entities, mandatory rotation of leadership roles, open-source knowledge sharing, and automatic sunset clauses for emergency powers. The allocation algorithm matches mechanism to resource type, need-based for basics, preference-based markets for personal goods, democratic planning for commons, and investment, all embedded in ecological limits with resource quotas and regenerative requirements. The system maintains redundancy over efficiency, prioritizes adaptation over optimization, and protects institutional diversity against homogenization. Success gets measured by capability expansion, ecological health, and social cohesion, rather than just material output. This creates a post-growth economy focused on qualitative improvement within planetary boundaries.
That framework captures the structural elements, but we need cultural practices that sustain it. The system requires widespread economic literacy so people understand why different mechanisms exist and how to participate effectively. Social norms must valorize contribution over accumulation, cooperation over domination, and long-term thinking over short-term gains. The integration happens through nested governance councils that coordinate between local autonomy and global challenges, plus circuit breaker mechanisms that prevent any single logic from colonizing others. Technology gets developed through commons-based innovation with community oversight of algorithmic systems. The enforcement relies on peer monitoring, graduated sanctions, and ultimately exclusion from cooperative benefits for persistent rule breakers. Most critically, the system includes constitutional protections for institutional diversity and automatic evolution mechanisms that adapt rules based on outcomes. We could call this adaptive mutualism, an economy organized around reciprocal cooperation that can evolve contextually while maintaining core values of human flourishing within ecological limits. It's neither market nor state-dominated, but a meta-system that deploys multiple coordination mechanisms strategically based on scale, relationships, and resource characteristics.
All right. The blueprint is complete. Are we willing to make the transition? Thanks for...
All right. So, listen, that's the AI, right? Let's talk about Tom P's manifesto. All right. This is the Communitarian Manifesto. Your community has rights from the Appalachian Guerrilla of March 25th, 2025. I felt it might be important to explain fully what the vision of a communitarian nation. Your community has rights. What is communitarianism? Your community has rights. Communitarianism is the fundamental idea that human beings live naturally in families and communities. These families are formed by fundamental transactional relationships between one generation and the next, and the need for specialization of individuals and families to form these communities. We live as humans not as the end point, but part of a larger line of human genealogy. We are never meant to be the end point. We are born into a set of parents. We will become parents, and our children will become parents. This line of humans has an ancestry and a future of descendants. Our children will marry other members of the community, creating new humans who will complement the community. This is how humans have lived since we were in trees millions of years ago, even before that as smaller mammals. In order to make sure that the humans continue to be made in your community, you need a common culture. This culture belongs to every member of your community. It is an asset and a resource to be passed down and cherished as much as any financial asset. Your community's cohesiveness is based on its shared culture, which is formed by geography, economics, language, history, and ancestry. I know people are screaming that religion should be included here. Religion should be the glue that holds your culture together with practices that celebrate your cultural heritage. So let's get into founding principles. Founding principles. Your community should have the right of refusal of any outsiders moving in. Your community has the right to refuse access to businesses that wish to purchase land and operate or compete in your community's local economy. Any businesses that was built in your local economy should not be able to move out of your community without compensating the local inhabitants who helped build it. Your community should have the right to dictate the local customs and rules regarding of how its residents behave. Your community should manage local food production. Community residents should have exclusive employment rights to businesses in their community. Young adults starting off in life should have exclusive rights to real estate in the community. Children should be prioritized and treated as a net positive. Community protectors, veterans, firefighters, ambulance drivers, etc. should be given homes. Communities should have the right to ostracize those who are unhealthy for the community. All residents should grow food. Property taxes should be abolished. Your house is now a home that will belong to your entire family and not just an individual. Investment firms will no longer be able to buy homes in communities. A nationwide sales tax will be put on to maintain roads, infrastructure, and defense. Basic understanding. The prefix com comes from Latin, meaning together or in association. Communicate, community, complement, compute, commodity, commune, commingle, combine, and compare are all forms of this basic root words plus a suffix. The Cold War propagandized us away from this idea. Though this is not communism, this is communitarianism. The basic structure restores healthy transactional relationships between community members. It ensures that those who contribute to a community's health work towards furthering their own culture, solidifying the idea of what your future will look like. Having all members grow food ensures that people's interactions will be transactional. If you like blueberries, you will treat the grower well. The exclusive access to employment and real estate ensures that children have a future in your community. The clause about businesses competing ensures investment in businesses in your community. The clause requires businesses to compensate the community and ensures the long-term stability of business that serves workers, restaurants, or local grocery stores. The ending of property taxes ends a perverse incentive structure for communities to prioritize curb appeal to raise homes value, in turn raising tax revenue. This will allow for more freedom of use of one's own property. For instance, you can put a swing set out for your own children. Crazy idea. The clause about homes belonging to family inhibits the idea that your home is an asset that can be mortgaged 3 times to buy a boat. This prevents cheap cash from chasing basic goods in the economy, dropping prices. It also stops the debt cycle and keeps banks out of your community. Summation. These principles will allow communities to welcome new people or let people do whatever they want, but will also allow communities to create more stability if they desire it. The system will work better in rural or suburban areas with more land, but it could also work in cities that desperately need stability. Each community will have to choose how it governs itself. The principles can be ignored a la carte or wholesale. However, the federal or state governments will have nothing to do with the basic lives of the people in your community. This is the way peoples lived worldwide until the 1850s. It is a return to the norm, not a new concept. These ideas have been thoroughly considered and seen to solve many of today's issues. Please leave a comment and tell me what you think. I'll be honest with you. I think, right, that this is basically the same exact shit that these motherfuckers just said, short of having like the global exchange nonsense of like having these hard ass ideas of going, hey, listen, we need emergency fucking breaker powers and all that type of shit. Right? Same thing they said without, like the fucking negative aspects of the bullshit that they try to talk about. Yeah, because like it'll literally provide homes for children, long term. It'll just be a little bit tough in the beginning when everybody doesn't already have a fucking home. Yeah, that's kind of where we are. Basic, simple, normal, family, implementing structures. Simple shit. But basically, the AIs, right, legitimately are creating the same fucking things that I created by myself without the need for all the extracurricular bullshit. Weird how that works, ain't it? The gorilla for the win, folks. Tom Peace and Pnoid News. I'm going to take a